There's a moment many people know too well. You're in the middle of a conversation. Maybe it's a disagreement, maybe it's something tender you've been holding in, and suddenly your throat tightens. Your chest feels heavy, your eyes burn, and before you can explain what you're feeling, the tears arrive. Not because you want them to, not because the moment is dramatic, but because your body gets there faster than your words. And almost immediately, something else shows up. Shame. You look away, you apologize. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm crying. As if your tears need permission to exist, as if they've interrupted something more important than what's happening inside you. For a long time, people who cry easily are told there's something wrong with them, that they're too sensitive, too emotional, not in control, so you learn to brace yourself, to swallow it down, to keep your voice steady while everything inside you is shaking. But here's the uncomfortable truth most people never say out loud. Tears don't come because you're weak. They come because something inside you has stopped holding. This video isn't about teaching you how to cry less. It's about understanding why, for some people, tears are simply the body's first language, spoken long before words have a chance to catch up. Let's begin. Most people think crying is an emotion, that tears mean sadness or weakness or being overwhelmed by feelings you can't control. But that's not actually what's happening. Crying isn't an emotion at all. It's something your nervous system does when it reaches a threshold. Your body is constantly scanning the world for safety or threat. Long before your mind forms a thought, your nervous system decides how much energy to mobilize and how much to release. When stress rises, the system moves into action. Fight, flight, or freeze. You stay focused, you hold it together, you do what needs to be done. And then when the pressure finally eases, when the conversation ends, when you're alone, when the danger passes, something shifts. The system lets go. For many people, that release shows up as tears. This is why you might stay calm during a crisis, support everyone else, make the right decisions, and only break down hours later in your car, your bathroom, or your bed. It's not delayed weakness, it's delayed safety. Your body waits until it believes you're allowed to soften. For people who cry easily, this release valve is especially responsive. Their nervous system doesn't need a dramatic collapse to reset. It senses overload early and responds quickly. Tears are not your body failing to cope. They are your body completing the stress response. Understanding this changes everything, because when you stop treating crying like an emotional flaw, you can start seeing it for what it really is. A biological signal that your system is trying to return to balance, quietly, efficiently, and often without asking your permission. When we talk about crying, we usually imagine one thing: water spilling from the eyes when emotions get too big. But biologically, tears are far more specific and far more intentional than that. Your body produces 3 different types of tears, each for a different purpose. The first are basal tears. They're in your eyes right now, even if you're not crying. Their job is maintenance, keeping the surface of your eyes lubricated, protected, and alive. You never notice them because they're not meant to be felt. The second are reflex tears. These show up when something threatens the eye: smoke, dust, onions. They come fast and in large amounts, designed to flush out danger. Efficient, mechanical, protective. But the third type is the most misunderstood: emotional tears. Under a microscope, emotional tears look different from the other two. Researchers have found they contain higher concentrations of stress-related hormones like cortisol, along with natural pain-relieving chemicals called endorphins. In other words, when you cry emotionally, your body is not just expressing distress, it's actively regulating it. This is why crying often brings a strange sense of relief afterward, even if the situation hasn't changed. Something inside you has shifted. Pressure has been released. Chemical signals tied to stress have been reduced. Emotional tears exist because there are experiences the body needs to process that words alone can't resolve. When language runs out, the nervous system takes over. Crying becomes the body's way of saying, "This matters, and it needs to move through me." Your tears aren't random. They're purposeful, designed to help you recover from being human. If you cry easily, it's not just because you feel more, it's because your nervous system takes in more. Psychologists sometimes describe this as having a sensitive or highly responsive system. But a more accurate way to think about it is this. Most people move through the world with a thick internal filter. Their brain automatically dulls background noise, emotional shifts, subtle tension in a room. Only the loudest signals get through. For some people, that filter is thinner. You notice when a friend's tone changes even slightly. You feel the emotional temperature of a space the moment you walk in. Bright lights, constant noise, unresolved tension, unspoken expectations, they don't fade into the background. They accumulate. This isn't about being dramatic or fragile. It's about processing depth. A sensitive nervous system doesn't skim experience. It absorbs it. And absorption has a cost. By the end of the day, it's often not one event that makes you cry. It's the weight of everything that never fully left your system. The long conversation where you stayed composed. The crowded environment that kept your body alert. The emotional cues you tracked without realizing you were tracking them. Crying in this context is not overreaction. It's the body's way of releasing cumulative load. But here's the part people rarely talk about. Living without a thick filter often comes with self-doubt. You may wonder why things affect you more than they seem to affect others. You may try to toughen up, minimize your reactions, or silence your own signals so you don't feel like too much. The truth is, your nervous system isn't broken. It's finely tuned. The challenge isn't becoming less sensitive. It's learning how to live in a world that rarely slows down enough to accommodate depth, and giving your system the release it quietly asks for before it has to speak through tears. Have you ever felt tears rise while watching someone else cry without fully understanding why? Or felt your chest tighten when a friend talks about their pain, even though nothing in your own life has changed? That response isn't imagination, it's biology. Inside the brain is a network called the mirror neuron system. These neurons fire not only when you experience something yourself, but when you observe someone else experiencing it. When you see pain, your brain quietly simulates that pain. When you witness grief, part of your nervous system begins to carry it. For people with a more sensitive or responsive system, this mirroring is especially strong. You don't just understand what others feel, you feel it with them. This is known as affective empathy, and it's different from simply recognizing emotions at a distance. The emotion passes through your body, not just your thoughts. This is why emotional scenes in movies can feel overwhelming, why certain news stories stay with you long after others have moved on, why being around someone who is distressed can leave you feeling drained, even if you never spoke about yourself. This phenomenon is sometimes called emotional contagion, the unconscious absorption of another person's emotional state. And when that absorbed emotion has nowhere to go, it often exits through tears. Crying here isn't about your own story, it's about emotional load you've been carrying on behalf of others. This kind of empathy is a powerful form of connection, but without boundaries or recovery, it can quietly exhaust the nervous system. Tears become a way to return what doesn't belong to you, to let your body say, "I felt that, and now I need to release it." For many people, the hardest part of crying isn't the tears themselves. It's what comes after, the quick apology, the lowered voice, the familiar thought, "Why am I like this?" Somewhere along the way, crying stopped being just a bodily response and became a personal failure. You didn't just feel overwhelmed, you felt exposed, as if your emotions had betrayed you in front of the world. Shame isn't the same as emotion. Shame is something we learn. Most people who cry easily weren't taught that their feelings were welcome. They were taught, sometimes subtly, sometimes directly, that tears made others uncomfortable, that crying was inconvenient, that it meant being too much, too needy, too dramatic, too hard to deal with. So you adapted. You learned to cry quietly, to hide it in bathrooms, cars, late at night. You learned to explain yourself before anyone asked, to soften your reactions so they would be easier to accept. And over time, the body kept doing what it needed to do, but the mind turned against it. This is why so many people feel embarrassed even when crying alone. Why tears come with self-criticism instead of relief. Why you might feel ashamed of something that is, biologically, a self-regulating process. Shame doesn't stop tears. It just adds another layer of pain on top of them. When you ask, "Why am I like this?" you're not questioning your biology. You're questioning whether you're allowed to have needs, whether your internal signals deserve space, whether your emotions make you worthy of care or rejection. But here's the truth most people never hear. There is nothing morally wrong with your nervous system responding honestly. The shame you feel isn't proof that something is broken inside you. It's proof that, at some point, your body learned it wasn't safe to be fully seen. Understanding this doesn't make the tears disappear, it makes them kinder. Crying doesn't just come from the present moment. Often it carries a history. Long before we have language, our nervous system learns how connection works. As children, we discover what happens when we express distress. Are we met with comfort? Are we ignored? Are we told to calm down, stop crying, or handle it ourselves? Those early experiences quietly shape how our body uses tears. For some people, crying became a way to reach for closeness. If care only arrived when emotions were visible, the nervous system learned that tears were a bridge. This is often seen in anxious attachment. The tears aren't manipulation, they're an unconscious signal. Please see me, please don't leave. For others, the opposite happened. Emotions were dismissed or overwhelming to caregivers, so the body learned to shut them down. This is where avoidant attachment forms. Tears are held back for months or years until the pressure builds behind an invisible wall. Then one small moment, a spilled drink, a missed call, cracks the dam. What looks like an overreaction is actually accumulated grief finally finding an exit. There's also a quieter pattern many people miss: emotional neglect. Nothing overtly harmful happened. No obvious trauma, just a lack of emotional attunement. Feelings weren't punished, but they weren't mirrored or guided either. In these cases, crying can feel confusing and uncontrollable because the body learned the emotion, but not how to regulate it. This is why you might cry over something that seems minor and then feel embarrassed by the intensity. The tears aren't only about now, they're responding to earlier moments that never fully resolved. The important question isn't, why am I crying so much? It's, what did my nervous system learn about safety, connection, and being met? When you see crying through the lens of attachment, it stops being a character flaw. It becomes a learned pattern, one that once made sense, protected you, and helped you stay connected. And patterns, unlike defects, can be understood with compassion. We can't talk about crying without talking about gender, because biology and culture intersect here in powerful ways. On a biological level, hormones matter. The body uses prolactin, a hormone linked to tear production and emotional expression. On average, women have significantly higher levels of prolactin, which lowers the threshold for crying. Testosterone, more dominant in male bodies, can inhibit tear responses. Quite simply, for many women, crying happens more easily at a physiological level. But biology only explains part of the story. Culture finishes the lesson. From an early age, many boys are taught, directly or indirectly, that tears are unacceptable. Don't cry, man up, be strong. Over time, the nervous system adapts. Sadness and fear don't disappear. They're rerouted into silence, irritability, or anger. The body still feels, but it loses permission to release. This is why many men report feeling emotionally flooded, yet unable to cry. The system is loaded, but the outlet has been blocked for years. Psychologists call this emotional suppression, and it comes at a cost: higher stress levels, increased health risks, and deeper isolation. If you're a man who cries easily, you're often moving against decades of conditioning. And paradoxically, that makes you healthier, not weaker. Allowing tears is one of the most direct ways the nervous system reduces stress. Breaking the stigma around crying isn't about encouraging vulnerability for its own sake. It's about giving the body permission to do what it was always designed to do: release, regulate, and recover. Crying is often described as healing, and many times it is. After a good cry, your body may feel calmer, your breathing slows, the emotional edge softens. That's your nervous system completing a stress cycle and returning toward balance. But crying isn't automatically helpful in every situation. There's an important difference between regulation and overload. When crying helps, it's usually followed by some sense of relief, even if it's subtle. The tears move through, and afterward you feel a little clearer, a little more grounded. The emotion had somewhere to go, and now the system can rest. When crying becomes frequent but relief never comes, it's often a signal, not of weakness, but of capacity being exceeded. This happens when stress is chronic, not situational, when the body never fully leaves alert mode, when emotions are released but the conditions that overwhelm the nervous system remain unchanged. In these cases, tears don't resolve the tension, they simply reveal it. This is where many people get confused. They assume the problem is that they cry too much, so they try to control or suppress it. But suppression doesn't increase capacity. It only removes the warning light. Crying in these moments is information. It's the body saying, something needs more support than I currently have. That support might be rest, it might be boundaries, it might be slowing down, reducing stimulation, or finally acknowledging needs that have been minimized for too long. And sometimes it means reaching for help beyond what you can provide alone. Crying isn't the issue to fix, it's the signal to listen to. When you stop judging the tears and start reading them, they become guidance rather than something to fight. And guidance, when honored, is what prevents the system from having to speak louder next time. If there's one idea worth holding on to, it's this: you are not a person who cries too much. Crying is not your identity, it's information. Your tears are signals, messages from a nervous system that is paying attention. They tell you when something matters, when something is too much, when something needs care instead of endurance. They don't define who you are any more than a racing heartbeat defines your character. Many people spend years trying to become someone who cries less, when what they really need is to become someone who listens better to their limits, their needs, their internal signals. When tears are treated as a problem, they get fought or hidden. When they're treated as information, they become useful. They guide you toward rest, toward boundaries, toward honesty with yourself. You don't need to toughen up your emotions to be functional in the world. You need to understand the system that's carrying them. When you let tears move without shame, they pass more gently. When you stop making them mean something about your worth, they lose their power to control you. What's left is clarity about what drains you, what connects you, and what your body has been trying to say all along. If any part of this video felt uncomfortably familiar, you're not broken. You adapted. Your nervous system learned how to survive, connect, and release in the ways it knew how. And you don't have to figure that out alone. If these kinds of conversations help you feel understood rather than analysed, consider subscribing to the channel. We explore the quiet patterns beneath human behaviour, the ones most people feel but rarely name. And if this topic resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your experience in the comments. Your voice matters here.